When you put the BMW iX1 next to something like the Volvo XC40 Recharge or the Audi Q4 e-tron, which one actually wins when you stop letting the badge do all the talking? Because on paper, these things look competitive. Real world, though? That's a completely different conversation. And I've been sitting with this question long enough now that I think it's time to just lay it all out and give you my honest take. Today, we're breaking down the 2026 BMW iX1. Full specifications, how it looks outside, what it's actually like to live with inside, and then my real personal opinion on how it stacks up against the competition and whether it deserves your money over the alternatives. Let's get into it. Hey, and if you're new around here, genuinely welcome to Luxury Motor. We're not here to read you the brochure. We're here to tell you what it's actually like, what matters, what doesn't, and what the other guys aren't telling you. Hit subscribe and come be part of this. We're building something real here. All right, iX1, let's go. Let me start with something I realized pretty early on when I began spending serious time with the iX1. This car exists in this fascinating position in the market where it has to justify itself on two separate fronts simultaneously. First, it has to prove it's a genuine BMW, meaning it has to drive with that characteristic precision and intention that BMW buyers pay a premium for. Second, it has to prove it's a competitive EV, meaning range, charging, efficiency, and technology have to stand up against some genuinely strong rivals. What I've come to understand is that BMW pulled off both of those things, and doing both simultaneously is harder than it sounds. Now into the specifications, because this is where the iX1 makes its first real statement. The 2026 iX1 xDrive 30 is the variant most buyers will be looking at, and it's the one I want to focus on primarily. Dual electric motors, one on each axle delivering proper all-wheel drive, combined system output of 313 horsepower and 364 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in around 5.6 seconds. For context, that's quicker than a lot of performance-oriented combustion engine vehicles that would have been considered genuinely fast a decade ago. I've experienced that acceleration in real-world driving conditions, and I want to be honest with you, it never gets old. That instant torque delivery through all four wheels gives the iX1 this immediate, almost telepathic responsiveness that combustion engines simply cannot replicate regardless of their output. The battery is a 64.7 kilowatt-hour usable capacity unit that delivers real-world range sitting comfortably between 250 and 290 miles, depending on conditions, driving style, and temperature. Now here's where I want to address the comparison directly, because this is where the conversation gets interesting. The Audi Q4 e-tron offers comparable range in its top spec. The Volvo XC40 Recharge is in a similar ballpark. But what I've noticed is that BMW's energy management and real-world efficiency in varied driving conditions tends to be more consistent than some competitors. You're not seeing those dramatic range drops in cold weather or at highway speeds that some other EVs in this class experience more severely. DC fast charging supports up to 130 kilowatts, getting you from 10 to 80% in around 34 minutes. AC charging at home on an 11 kilowatt onboard charger. Look, I've learned that charging speed in this range of EVs is genuinely competitive across the board. Nobody has a dramatic advantage here, but BMW's 130 kilowatt ceiling keeps the iX1 in the conversation without embarrassment. What I believe matters more than peak charging speed is how consistently the vehicle hits that peak across a session, and the iX1 performs well on that metric. Single-motor rear-wheel drive configuration is also available in some markets as the eDrive 20, producing around 204 horsepower with slightly extended range, around 270 to 310 miles. For buyers who don't need all-wheel drive capability, that rear-wheel drive setup actually gives the iX1 this more characterful, more traditionally BMW-feeling dynamic balance that I personally find really appealing. Over time, I've grown to appreciate rear-wheel drive bias in a way that AWD systems, however excellent, don't always deliver. Let's talk about how the iX1 looks, because this is an area where I have some genuine opinions and I'm not going to hold back on them. From my point of view, BMW made some brave choices with the iX1's exterior, and I think most of them paid off well. The front end carries BMW's current design language with that large closed kidney grille in a black panel treatment that signals EV identity without making it the only thing you notice about the face. The headlights are slim and precise with that sharp LED signature that reads as premium and intentional. What I've noticed is that the iX1 manages to look distinctly electric without resorting to the kind of aggressively futuristic styling that can date a car quickly. It looks contemporary without trying desperately hard to look contemporary, and that's actually a more difficult design achievement than it might seem. The side profile benefits from that same longer, wider platform I mentioned in other X1 discussions. Clean, taut surfacing with a rising character line that adds visual tension and movement. The closed-off lower body panels, which serve aerodynamic purposes on the EV, are integrated cleanly rather than looking like an afterthought. Wheel options range from 18 to 20 inches, and the larger options in particular fill out the profile in a way that gives the iX1 genuine visual presence rather than the slightly anonymous look some compact EVs fall into. Looking back at how I used to evaluate EV exterior design, I used to think differentiation meant dramatic styling. What I've come to understand now is that confidence and restraint can be just as distinctive, maybe more so in a segment that's becoming increasingly crowded with dramatic styling choices. The iX1 knows what it is and presents itself accordingly. The rear end is clean and resolved with those connected LED taillights and a smooth tailgate that has an aerodynamic efficiency to its shape. Compared to the Audi Q4 e-tron's rear, which I've always found a little busy, and the Volvo XC40 Recharge, which is bold but more polarizing, the iX1's rear strikes me as the most timeless of the three. That matters when you're making a purchase you're going to live with for 5 or more years. Inside is where the iX1 genuinely distances itself from its competition in my experience, and I want to explain exactly why I feel that way. That curved display combining the 10.25-inch instrument display with the 10.7-inch central touchscreen is a familiar sight from the broader BMW lineup, but the execution here is excellent for the class. Running iDrive 8, the system is fast, genuinely intuitive, and handles wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto without drama. What I've noticed when I compare this directly to the Q4 e-tron's MMI system and the Volvo's Google-based infotainment is iDrive 8 strikes the best balance between sophistication and actual everyday usability. The Volvo system is clean but sometimes feels limited. The Audi system is comprehensive but can feel like work. BMW's sits in this sweet spot of being powerful without demanding your full attention to operate. Material quality throughout the iX1 cabin is genuinely strong for the segment. Sustainable material options are available throughout, which I've grown to appreciate not just for environmental reasons, but because BMW's execution of these materials actually looks and feels premium, rather than like a compromise. The recycled fabric upholstery options have a texture and quality that genuinely surprises people who assume sustainable means cheap. Here's something I want to address specifically because I think it separates the iX1 from both the Q4 e-tron and XC40 Recharge in a way that isn't always talked about enough: the driving dynamics. This is where being a BMW actually means something tangible, rather than just badge value. I've experienced all three of these vehicles back-to-back in varied driving conditions, and I want to be straight with you about what I found. The Volvo is supremely comfortable and refined, but feels soft and somewhat detached from the road. The Audi is competent and confidence-inspiring, but doesn't particularly excite or engage. The iX1 is the one that actually makes you feel connected to what's happening beneath you. The steering has genuine weight and feedback. The chassis communicates road surface information without harshness. The whole thing feels alive in a way that the others genuinely don't. For me, that driving character is the iX1's most important differentiator, because you can find comparable range elsewhere. You can find comparable technology elsewhere. You cannot easily find this level of dynamic engagement in this segment at this price point. That's uniquely BMW territory, and the iX1 defends it convincingly. Rear seat space is solid. Cargo is 490 liters with seats up, expanding to around 1,400 liters folded flat. Practical, usable, honest numbers. Driver assistance is comprehensive with the full BMW suite covering adaptive cruise with stop and go, lane keeping, emergency braking, and surround view cameras. All of it works well, all of it operates with the confidence and consistency I've come to expect from BMW's assistance systems. So, here's my straight-up, honest opinion on whether the 2026 BMW iX1 beats its rivals and whether you should buy one.